From the 22 News Broadcast Center, this is a Decision 2016 special program. Today, a Democratic debate for Hampshire County Sheriff. And now, here's Rich Teddemer.
Good afternoon. 22 News is working for you as we let the candidates you'll see on the ballot for the state primary on Thursday, September 8th, debate the issues. Today, it's the Democratic candidates running for Hampshire County Sheriff to succeed longtime Sheriff Robert Garvey, who is not seeking re-election. The candidates are the Hampshire County Jail Assistant Superintendent Patrick Cahillane, also Melissa Perry, who is the Behavioral Health Nursing Director at Holyoke Medical Center, and Kavern Lewis, who does security work. First, each candidate will have a chance to make an opening statement. They have 1 minute to make that opening statement, and Patrick Cahillane, you'll go first.
Thank you, Rich, for hosting this event. My name is Patrick Cahillane, and I have been a full-time public employee for 30 years. I was a member of the Massachusetts Army National Guard, and I am a correctional officer and administrator at the Hampshire County Jail and House of Correction. I live in Leeds with my wife and two children, or two dogs, I apologize for that, and my three young daughters are out in the community. I have worked my way up through the ranks at the Hampshire County Sheriff's Office. I am now the Special Sheriff and Assistant Superintendent for Sheriff Robert J. Garvey. I'm proud of the work that we do, and we do that very quietly and distinguished in the community. I want to be the next sheriff of Hampshire County because I want to continue the good work that we do. We have a well-trained staff of correctional officers, case managers, and maintenance, administrative, and medical staff. I have a great deal to offer the citizens of Hampshire County, and I want to continue that service as the next sheriff of Hampshire County.
Thank you, Patrick. Kavern Lewis, your opening statement, please.
My name is Kavern Lewis, and I'm running for Hampshire County Sheriff. First, I want to say there was an article that came out about myself in regards to my past employment. If anybody would like to see my resume, they're welcome to contact me through my Facebook. That being said, I have 10 years of corrections, law enforcement, and security experience. I was raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been here for 10 years on and off. This election is about change, and I think that, you know, when it comes to that, it's all about the youth and giving back to the community. Thank you.
Melissa Perry, your opening statement, please.
Hi, Rich. Thanks for having us here. My name is Melissa Perry. I am a candidate for Hampshire County Sheriff. I live in Northampton, Massachusetts, and I am currently the Director of Behavioral Health Nursing at Holyoke Medical Center, and I am on the Board of Directors for River Valley Counseling Center. I manage over 100 staff members, including nurses, clinicians, and social workers and secretaries. I have a degree in criminal justice, psychology, and I'm a registered nurse. I have excellent interpersonal skills, and I was voted #1 leader in Valley Health Systems in 2015 and #1 for staff engagement in a Press Ganey survey in 2015. I manage a large budget. I am a mental health and substance abuse expert. I have worked collaboratively with treatment agencies, health providers, the Department of Mental Health, Public Health, and the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services to provide a quality and collaborative approach to the treatment of those who suffer from mental illness. These qualifications would be significant in the sheriff's role due to the fact that a large number of people incarcerated have mental illness and substance abuse. I am the granddaughter
Time is up. Your time is up right now, Melissa. That's your opening statement. You get 1 minute for your opening statement. So let's just go over what we're going to do here. I'll ask the questions. Each candidate then gets 1 minute to respond to the question that I ask. We'll start and go from left to right as we ask the questions here, starting off with Patrick Cahillane. So you get the first answer to the first question. Here we go. It is, what is your plan for dealing with the opioid crisis in Hampshire County? Patrick?
Collaboratively, we work day in and day out with other agencies outside of the Hampshire County facility to augment the services that are being done with the opioid task force that is run by the district attorney's office. We'll continue to do that. We have staff that are full-time working with that district attorney's office in making changes, and those changes are working in Hampshire County. We've had success in how we do the program. I want to continue those activities and continue to do the treatment programs that we do inside the correctional facility to prepare people for reentry in a safe and humane manner so that they can maintain sobriety once they leave the facility. We work with a substance called Vivitrol, which is the up-and-coming drug that will hopefully be the catalyst.
Hi, Mr. Cahillane. Ms. Perry, your answer to question 1, please.
As far as the opioid crisis, I am very familiar with the fact that we have a large opioid crisis in not only the state of Massachusetts, but in the nation. And as I said in my opening statement, I am a behavioral health RN with experience in mental illness and substance abuse. I'd like to get the opioid crisis out of the jails and back into the community, and I would work with public agencies, as I do now, to try and come up with community treatment programs for those who suffer from addictions issues.
Kavern Lewis, your answer to question 1, please.
We do have an issue currently with the opiate crisis, and I think that it's important that we start with the community and get involved in our school system and educate them. And also, once they come into our jails, try to find other programs that we are willing to implement to make sure that they don't return back to our jails. My goal is to refer them to another agency and keep them away from being incarcerated. Thank you.
Time for question 2, candidates, and Melissa, you get to answer this one first. Substance abuse rehabilitation can be a lifelong struggle. Who pays for that?
Actually, we as a state and a nation have to pay for substance abuse treatment, but it is an illness, and people with substance abuse issues should be treated with respect and dignity and treated like any other illness. And so grant monies, insurances should absolutely pay for people who have substance abuse issues.
Kavern Lewis, your answer, please.
I don't think that it should be the citizens of Hampshire County or within the state that should have to pay for this, but I think, like Melissa said, that we should, it should be through grants when it comes to paying for these things. This is definitely a mental illness. This is not a criminal matter, and we should treat it such.
Patrick Cahillane, your answer, please, to question 2.
We all pay for the opioid issue at this point in time. As a society, it has been a scourge. One of the things that we have to look at is how do we resolve a societal issue, a complex problem, by making sure that we all work together. Outside agencies as well as the Hampshire County Sheriff's Office continue to do that work day in and day out. The payment for this process is everybody's burden and will continue to be everybody's burden until we fix it.
Okay, candidates, time for question 3, and this is starting with Kavern. If elected, explain what your hiring practices will be, as long as there are always concerns about patronage and political favors. Kavern?
Well, I think it's important that we look at the large group of individuals that we currently have and assess that from there. One thing I would like to do is start with bringing in people from the community and let them come in and interview people as well. It would be myself, probably assistant superintendent, and citizens from the community itself, and start off from there and bring in people like minorities. We do have a low count of minorities working for the Sheriff's Department, and we definitely need to be able to bring them into our jails.
Patrick Cahillane, your answer to question 3, please.
As it exists, we do have a diverse staff. One of the things that we do is we have panels of employees who interview, who test, and eventually work towards the hiring process. At the end of the day, our goal is to find the best qualified candidate to work in the best qualified area that they have expertise in.
And Melissa Perry, your answer to question 3, please.
I actually would also assess the staff that are currently at the jail and House of Correction to see what kind of skills they have, and I would actually try and work with the folks at the jail and put people in places that they belong. And as far as hiring, I would assess, interview, and also bring the team of the correctional officers and program team to assist in that hiring process so that everybody has a say in someone who's newly hired.
Okay, we're up to question 4, candidates, and we'll go back to Patrick for the first answer. Your thoughts on the November ballot question that treats recreational marijuana like alcohol. Patrick?
The problem with the ballot question at this point in time, from the information that I've read, is that the Senate subcommittee from the state Senate actually felt that as the ballot question is written, would be a concern because it affects such areas as driving under the influence of marijuana and how we deal with juveniles and the handling of marijuana. One of the problems that has come up is we have new higher potency marijuana that would be marketed, and we'd have to have good controls.
Melissa Perry, your answer, please.
This is one I struggle with because the Drug Policy Alliance says that currently the nation is 50% in favor of legalizing marijuana, and I think it's inevitable that it will be legalized. However, as a mental health provider and a healthcare provider, I struggle with the effects of marijuana, not so much different than the effects of alcohol and nicotine, which are also very dangerous. Marijuana can cause lethargy and apathy. However, like I said, I do think that it's inevitable that it will be become law. Become law, and I guess that's it. Thanks.
Kavern, your answer to question 4, please.
I think that marijuana should be legalized, but controlled at the same time. Like Patrick said, I don't think an individual that is driving a vehicle should smoke before that and get on the road, because you're not only putting yourself at risk, but you're putting others at risk. From my personal experience, I've never had that issue in the past when I was using marijuana at that time. So, for me, I think, like I said, it should be controlled, and we should do more research.
Candidates, it's time for question 5, and Melissa, you'll go first on this one. It's been said that the U.S. leads the world in prison population, that we lock up more people than anywhere else. Are we doing something wrong? Melissa?
Yes, I believe actually, again, as I was stating in my opening statement, 60 to 70% of those people who are incarcerated carry a behavioral health diagnosis, which includes mental illness and substance abuse. I believe we need to get it back out into the community and have treatment centers for those folks and not make it a criminal justice issue.
Kavern?
Yes, I think that, when it comes to the opiate crisis that we are locking up, especially for these individuals that are committing these nonviolent crimes. Also, on the other aspect of minorities, we're getting locked up left and right for petty things as well, and I think we should really look into that and assess those as well.
Patrick, your answer, please.
In Hampshire County, the number of arrests are down over the last 2 years by a good percentage. The number of people coming from a pretrial population to a sentenced population is down over those last 2 years. We've worked in the past with the court and probation to make sure that the overcrowding issue that happened up until about 10 years ago was resolved. So some of those pieces are being fixed already, and so I think as we continue down this road, we will continue to reduce the population. Overall in Massachusetts, the population is down from roughly 5 years ago, where it was about 26,000 individuals incarcerated, down to today's number is about 20,000 across the Commonwealth between jails, houses of corrections, and the Department of Corrections.
Okay, candidates, we'll take a short 2-minute break and then more questions for the Democratic candidates running for Hampshire County Sheriff. You're watching 22 News. Welcome back to the debate for the Democratic candidates running for Hampshire County Sheriff to succeed longtime Sheriff Robert Garvey, who is not seeking re-election. The candidates that we have today are Hampshire County Jail Assistant Superintendent Patrick Cahillane, also Melissa Perry, who is the Behavioral Health Nursing Director at Holyoke Medical Center, and Kavern Lewis, who does security work. We're up to question 6 for the candidates, and Kavern, you go first in this rotation. Hiring paid consultants has become an issue in the Hampden County Sheriff's race. Do you foresee the need to hire consultants?
Absolutely not. I don't see the purpose for that. I think if the individuals that we currently have in our jails right now, I think that's good enough. If they are consultants, if elected, I would make sure that we get rid of that altogether, because at the end of the day, these are the taxpayers that are putting money into our system and making sure that we want to have it ran the correct way.
Patrick, your answer, please.
There are no consultants working for the Hampshire Sheriff's Office, but there may be circumstances where consultants may need to be hired for specific jobs that are short-term. If you're designing a new facility, you may need to hire an engineer. If you're revamping some program, you may need to hire some specialist to run that program or to get it up off of the ground. So those are areas where there is a necessity, but those are usually short-term ideas and short-term lengths of contracts.
Melissa Perry, your answer, please.
I would have to assess the need for hiring consultants, and certainly I would have to say if there was a need for a consultant or a consultant agency, I would bring them in if I needed assistance to understand something, to get something off the ground.
Okay, candidates, question 7, and Patrick, you'll answer this one first. How does the position of Hampshire County Sheriff go beyond overseeing the county jail?
The sheriff is also responsible for making sure that individuals who are held by the court are transported all over the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by safe transportation. He also, or she also, has to run the Civil Process Department and the Community Corrections Department, as well as we have a division of Triad, which assists senior citizens in staying safe in their homes and in their community.
Melissa, your answer, please.
I would see my role as sheriff beyond the management of the jail and house of correction and all the programs that Patrick talked about, as going out into the community and trying to engage other agencies to assist in, like I said, getting folks away out of the jail that don't need to be in jail. So talking to educators, talking to employers, talking to housing people, anybody that I could get that might be able to assist in getting those folks who shouldn't be in the jail back out into the community.
And Kavern, your answer, please, to question 7.
My aspect, I would definitely broaden the job a little more and get more involved in the community. We're talking about getting involved in the school systems, educating the youth. Same thing with educating the community about the job of the sheriff and the authority of the sheriff and what he can and can't do. Also, the law enforcement aspect, assisting the local police departments a little more than what the sheriff currently does.
Okay, time for question 8, and we start off with Melissa on this one. The Hampden County Sheriff has received high marks from the White House and Governor Baker for his inmate rehab program. Would you implement his model in your jail? And we start off with Melissa.
I would actually love to be able to do that. Sheriff Ash has done a nice job at implementing programs and continues to seek out more programs, again, to assist in the rehab of the people who are incarcerated, both while they're in the jail and house of correction and when they get out with follow-up programs.
Kavern, your answer, please.
I would absolutely love to implement his programs. Especially, he's been recognized throughout the nation. So I think it's important to go with that model and assess it from there.
And Patrick, your answer, please.
The Hampshire County model has also been recognized by many leaders across the country. As a matter of fact, Sheriff Garvey was named Sheriff of the Year in 2002 for his innovativeness for programs. But I've also worked with Sheriff Ash and Sheriff Ash's staff on collaborative programs, including the Western Mass Alcohol Treatment Center. We have, that is a joint venture with the 4 western counties and Worcester County. Those programs would continue under a Patrick Cahillane administration.
Okay, we're up to question 9, and it's a controversial topic, solitary confinement. And our question is, do you support solitary confinement? And I believe we start off with Kavern.
I do believe in solitary confinement, especially if the inmate is not only harm to themselves but to others. But you know, it comes down to how long are you going to keep that individual in there for? Because you know, you keep somebody in a room, you know, closed from other individuals for a long period of time, you know, I guarantee you they're going to be pretty upset once they come out, and then they're going to return right back in there. So when it comes to timing, definitely not.
Patrick, your answer, please.
Solitary confinement is misunderstood in many ways. Solitary confinement means separation from other individuals to keep them safe, or to keep the staff safe, or to keep other individuals safe inside the facility. It is a short-term solution to control a situation. In most situations, the staff work hard, including the mental health and medical staff, who have to ensure that they check on that individual while they are in a solitary situation. And it is, by the American Correctional Association standards, a short-term timeout, if you will, to get control of a situation.
And Melissa, your answer to question 9, please.
I struggle with solitary confinement as an individual. However, I understand the need if someone is a danger to themselves or others, more so to others. And I understand that sometimes people need to be separated. However, when elected, I would definitely make sure that I implemented policy and procedures that these folks are assessed on a routine basis for the ability to come out of solitary confinement.
Okay, candidates, it's now time for closing statements, and each candidate gets 1 minute to make that closing statement. And Kavern Lewis, you'll go first.
I want to thank you for hosting this event. The Sheriff's Department is a very unique department, and I think here in Hampshire County that we should know exactly what our sheriff can and can't do. Like I said before, educating the youth, giving back to the community at the best that we can. Anytime that there's an issue, you should be able to walk into the sheriff's office and speak to him about issues and not have to go through a large number of individuals just to get to him. Like I said, I want to thank you, and I hope to see you in the ballot. Thank you.
Patrick Cahillane, your closing statement, please.
I'm applying to the voters of Hampshire County to become the next administrator of a public safety agency. I'm the one candidate in this race who has actually managed a correctional agency. I'm the one candidate who works full-time in a Massachusetts criminal justice agency and supervises day-to-day operations. I have a bachelor's degree from Westfield State and a master's degree in criminal justice administration from Western New England. I have studied with programs with the American Correctional Association and the American Jail Association. I'm an adjunct faculty member at Westfield State for the last 10 years. I'm the only person in this race that has the background and hands-on to manage on day one. I would ask for your vote on September 8th, Thursday, to continue progressive leadership at the Hampshire County Sheriff's Office. Thank you.
Melissa Perry, your answer, your closing statement, please.
I would also like to thank you, Rich and staff. I just wanted to say real quickly that I didn't get a chance to say this in my opening statement. I am the granddaughter of the late Sheriff John F. Boyle, and my parents were both correctional officers at the jail, George and Carol Perry. When elected, I would, the first call of duty for me would be to give Sheriff Garvey a call, thank him for his service, and ask him for any advice he might have for me. I would then get the staff together and those incarcerated to get ideas on making Hampshire County Sheriff's Office a good place to work, a safe place to be, and creative ways to decrease offending and recidivism. With the struggles that face us today, having someone in the Sheriff's Office who is well respected, an excellent leader, and able to bring about change for open communication and problem solving, and I believe that someone would be me. So vote for me on September 8th, Thursday, and I believe a fresh face with fresh ideas is needed.
And that concludes our look at the candidates running for Hampshire County Sheriff on the Democratic side. Thanks to Patrick Cahillane, Melissa Perry, and Kavern Lewis for participating. As we mentioned, primary day is Thursday, September the 8th. If you missed any of today's debate, you can also see it again on our website at wwlp.com. I'm Rich Tadimer. Thanks for joining us, and have a good day.